Hello everyone, my name is Kenya Avilez Espinoza and I will be conducting my presentation on emotional wellness, and the title for my presentation is Emotional Damage. Okay, let's get started. Slide 2 is showing the agenda for the presentation. We will start off with the definition, then services provided, pros and cons, improvement, and the conclusion. The definition of emotional wellness is pretty much, in the simplest way I can define it, is the way you treat yourself physically and mentally. So for instance, you have to be kind to yourself, because if you're not kind to yourself, this will get to you and will eventually harm your emotional wellness, whether it's physical, mental, medically, it will find a way to harm you. So in other words, just be kind to yourself and just see the way you act and the way you are towards yourself. So for instance, physically, if you tend to think, oh, I need to lose weight, but I'll never lose weight, you already have that ingrained in your mind, which leads to depression sometimes. It leads to anxiety because you can't lose weight, but it's all in your mind most of the time. So you just have to push yourself in order to do that. So the 6 dimensions come together in order to better increase your mindset and drive and become a healthier person overall. The emotional dimension, it can mean many different things because it has many subcategories, but the ones that I will focus on in this presentation is physical and mental, as I feel like those two are very important and relevant in today's day and age. So emotional wellness can mean many different things, of course, but it's more about acceptance, having confidence in yourself, being good to yourself, and also the physical part of it is maintaining a good physique, not just necessarily being skinny or feeling like you're chubby, just being overall healthy. Services provided. The services provided that I chose for emotional wellness are gyms, counseling, wellness checks, and yoga/meditation. I feel that these 4 all go hand in hand with each other in the physical and in the mental subcategory of emotional wellness, and they can be used in either of the two. Gyms. So gyms, if you're like me, I personally hate going to gyms because I feel like I'm either being watched or, I personally don't like going because I am more of an anxiety-ridden person. So I just don't feel comfortable in my own skin to be over there and be confident around others, especially people who have been there for a long time or who already know what they're doing, because I really don't know what I'm doing half the time. So what I found is that in my local area, an actual friend of mine who has a gym named Kevin Bravo, he has his own gym and he just recently opened up a separate room or a separate part of the gym that is women only, which I feel this is something good. If you have anxiety like me, or you don't feel like you want to be around men or other people, you can go ahead and go into this room, and it is secluded. The door is blacked out, so there's no way of anyone peeking in and looking in, and it has all the equipment you could possibly need. So this is a good thing, a good factor that could help with your anxiety and also while maintaining your physical fitness as well. Counseling is one of those other topics that is a really good way to go if you're wanting to maintain your mental health. So counseling, I personally love counseling. I started about 2 years ago and I've seen only good results from it. So fortunately, we as Mounties have access to a counseling center site on the university. and that can be found online at the Eastern Oregon University website, the exact location. So that is something good if you are on campus student. If you are like me, they do offer telehealth appointments, which is also something good. And also just looking around, most of the insurance companies, which I forgot to mention in my presentation, do allow a couple of counseling appointments per year. So that might be something else that's good to look into as well. Wellness checks are another good thing to look into. So wellness checks, ever since you were small, you had to do them regularly, and then they used to be weekly, then monthly, then yearly as you get older. So wellness checks are not only beneficial just to see how you're doing physically and checking up on some things that may be of concern, but also you can let your provider know if you're having any mental health issues as well. So that's where the physical and the mental can go hand in hand. So you could let your provider know, hey, I'm not feeling that good. I'm sleeping a lot. That was one of my main concerns. And she looked into it, and I realized, my anxiety levels were ridiculously high. So I was referred to a counselor, and then also I was put on some medication because I was unable to sleep as well. So definitely, if you're feeling like something's not right, not just, medically, like, oh, I'm not sleeping at night, I can't stop thinking about things and worrying, go to your provider and they can definitely look into that, and they will take a test and see which scale you fall under for anxiety. Lastly is yoga and meditation. Yoga and meditation has also been another one of those things that has helped me personally overcome some of my anxiety and PTSD that I currently have. So yoga and meditation. Yoga and meditation is a good way of doing exercises and techniques on your own, where they do not require you having to go into the doctors or having to see anyone typically. So those are good if you have anxiety or if you can't drive or something. Those are good options as well. I recommend going on the iPhone podcasts if that's available and just doing a quick search of guided meditations. I like those because they tell you what to do the whole time, how many breaths to take in, what to focus on. So those are really good ways of reducing stress. And yoga, of course, is a good way of reducing stress, but also increasing your flexibility and your physicalness. So this is a quote I saw online that I really liked, and I thought it pertained to the subject. It's by Aristotle, and it says, "It is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light." I agree with this quote, as when we are just deep down in emotional stress, or we're just sad, depressed, whatever, we need to come up. We need to push ourselves in order to be better. This is why it goes hand in hand with emotional wellness, because it's all about how you treat yourself and how you see things. Pros and cons of services provided. So the first one is gyms. So the pros and cons. The pros that I found for the gym is, the good aspect is having gyms that offer women only. So that way, there can be men that are self-conscious as well. Don't get me wrong, but I found more of a community for women only rooms. I didn't really find men only rooms, which I apologize, but that's a good thing. And it allows you to be confident in your own area, kind of be yourself without having to feel like you're being watched all the time. Or if you're afraid of men or you have issues with men, it's also a good place to just be with other women. The cons that I found for this is that we usually, around these ages, around I would say my age, sorry, my age, 27 years old, there is a lot of people that have social anxiety, and that takes away from us being able to flourish and kind of be uncomfortable and maybe even get over our social anxiety, because it allows you to be secluded. So it doesn't really help the social anxiety. On the contrary, it might increase it by you always being secluded. So that is another thing that's a con. And also, although there are many places that offer these kind of locations where women can just be on their own in a room, there isn't enough. It's just something that's barely starting out, I want to say, in the past year. So there is locations, but there's not many around, especially if you live in rural areas or non-city places. Next, we have counseling. The pros of counseling for me were the ability to talk to someone that doesn't know you, and just a judgment-free zone because they don't know you, so you don't feel attacked, or you just are able to tell someone that you know it won't come back to you or it won't get around or something, because that's the issue with talking to maybe possibly friends or family. These things can get around, and you just don't feel like you can talk to someone. So that's a good way to go if you want to talk to someone with no judgment at all, and with possible tips and help. They can also refer you to other places medically as well, so that's also a good thing. The cons I found with counseling are that they can be expensive. That is one thing that I found. Counseling, typically the first appointment is not covered by any insurances, so it is, if you go with a private counselor, it is about $100 to $200, and then afterwards your insurance will pick up and charge it as a normal copay, so it can be spendy. What I found the cons with the counseling offered at Eastern Oregon University is the availability and the requirements for the counseling. So the availability, you have to make an appointment, of course, which makes it kind of hard, because what if they don't have any appointments available for a week or two and you're in a really, really deep space, deep, dark space. So that is an issue with counseling. If you need someone right away, they might not be available. Another one is the requirements. So because the counselors at Eastern Oregon University practice in Oregon, if you live outside of Oregon, you would have to be in Oregon in order to get the counseling, whether it is in person or by telehealth. You have to physically be in Oregon, which makes it kind of hard if you're an out-of-state student. Like me, I live in Idaho and I can't always go to Oregon, so that does make it kind of hard. Wellness checks. With wellness checks, the pros, as mentioned above when I was explaining about wellness checks, is it can be a benefit to anyone, young and old. So with wellness checks, you can find out you have, which is sad to say, but you can find out you have diseases that you didn't even know. By regularly going to your checkups, you can find out in advance and possibly even fix them before they're detrimental. So that is the good thing of wellness checks, and also keeping a good relationship with your provider, where you guys get to know each other, you go one-on-one, and you continue to see the same provider every year. The provider will be able to have more of a clue of what's going on with you, instead of just coming in and seeing random doctors whenever it's needed. So the provider can follow up in your chart, they can look into things, they can request referrals out. It's more of a relationship, and they will get to know kind of when something's not right. So that's why I like doing wellness checks. And I think they're a good idea for anyone, especially, the fact that they can see things, like if, for instance, you get what is it? A disease that is non-curable, maybe it can be cured before it's just too late. So the cons of wellness checks is the pricing, of course. So not everyone has insurance. And if you don't have insurances, wellness checks range between $150 to $300, and that's not including any labs done. So wellness checks are spendy, and without having insurance, it makes it extremely difficult to be able to continue to do a wellness check yearly. Yoga and meditation. So for yoga and meditation, the pros, by practicing meditation, myself personally, I have found that there are good and bad about this method. So the good about this method in meditation is the ability to just kind of do it on your own whenever you have time. There's not a set time you have to do it. You can literally just say you're having a lot of anxiety. You could just do some breathing techniques at your office, in your desk, wherever you want to be. So that's the good thing about it. And also with yoga, you can do it on your own as well if you would like to. You could just pop down, get your mat out at home, and be able to do that on your own. So it is both techniques you're able to do alone and don't need the assistance of anyone. If you know how to do the breathing techniques, once you do it once, you're able to do it on your own. The guided techniques, you can just use your phone for those, which is pretty nice, and it comes in handy. The cons of it is that with meditating, I found, me personally, that while meditating, I had to be in a room that was completely silent in order to do the concentration meditations and also the guided meditations. So this can be an issue if you have, small children, or if you're like me, you have dogs that are really clingy and don't let you do this, because you do have to either sit up in a chair completely still. It's more recommended you lie down. So that can be an issue. And with yoga, if you're wanting to do an in-class yoga, because some people do like to be with others, usually there's a charge for these types of classes. They're not completely free most of the time. They're either charged as you have to have a membership to a gym, or it's a class separate from the gym and there's an extra fee. There is yoga on their own where you can go out and do them, but for instance, I wanted to do this yoga not too long ago. It was like baby goats yoga, but it was $40 a session, which I thought was a little crazy. So yeah, there is a charge for in-person yoga. Improvements for emotional wellness. So there's always improvements in order to increase your emotional wellness. What this means is that there's just many ways that you can increase it, whether physically, mentally, or with health improvements. There are many different ways that you can increase your emotional wellness. Since your emotional wellness is such a big category, there are many different ways that you can increase it. So with emotional wellness, physical improvements for that can be physical activity. So you can go on walks, you can go on runs. Just simply walking 10 minutes a day can help drastically improve your emotional wellness, because your emotional wellness is how you see yourself. So if you think you're overweight, if you think I can't run anymore, that's me, you can't run anymore, then definitely going on walks to build that endurance, and just the feeling afterwards that you get of accomplishing something can also trigger a chain reaction and making you feel a lot better. Health improvements. As mentioned before, I am a really big person on yearly checkups. and that is due to my grandfather never going to go get checkups yearly, and when he finally went, he had terminal cancer. So I am a big advocate on yearly checkups. This can also help with obviously your mental health. If you're having mental health issues, go to your provider, please, in order for them to find a way to help you. Don't live with that stress, with that tiredness, with that lack of sleep, lack of energy. Go get help. It not only helps you, but it helps everything else around you as well. Because you may feel like you're stuck, you're not getting anywhere, and which makes your emotional wellness go down the drain. So improving your health and your physicalness and your mental state, all of those three can help your emotional wellness. Lastly, we have mental improvements. Mental improvements are ways to better your mental health and overall increase your emotional wellness. So mental improvements can be anything from, I would say, our therapy, walks, reading books, yoga, and meditation. All those 5 things can be done, and they require hardly little to any time to do. So you could just put yourself forward. It's more of accomplishing goals as well, and getting out of that funk of just, oh, I want to go to sleep all the time, or I'm just so depressed, I want to lay in bed. It's more of pushing yourself to be better and pushing yourself to do something that increases your mental health and physical. With the walks, you can increase your physical and your mental at the same time. Reading books is something good to activate your brain, give your brain some food, and meditation and yoga are also physical and mental. So all these 3 little subcategories go hand in hand in order for you to fix or maintain a good emotional wellness. In conclusion, emotional wellness is a bigger category when it comes to what really is emotional wellness. At the beginning of this project, I couldn't decide if I wanted to do physical or mental because I felt that both were 2 big categories of emotional wellness, so I decided to do both. And hopefully they make sense, hopefully they do, because they go hand in hand, and most of the things are both physical and mental at the same time. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you have a great day.